Welcome guests to this webinar. Welcome colleagues from Finnish schools, Northern Ireland schools, Scottish schools, HETEL and the Dutch Alliance. A short introduction to this network of networks, an international group of VET leaders and VET staff aiming to cooperate for international activities for our students. Our roots go back to 2007, when representatives of the Finnish schools, HETEL and the Dutch Alliance came together to confirm the lots of cooperation they had already achieved in what would be called a learning partnership at that moment. The definition was not just another group of schools who like to work together, but to have a group of very experienced schools to make a high quality of staff mobility and student mobility. In 2015, this group was extended with the Northern Irish network and the Scottish network. But our way of working was continued, grassroots approach, high quality and a kind of preferred partnership together. And now we are in 2020. Where do we stand? We have 5 networks, we have 49 schools, and we have altogether more or less than 400,000 students that benefit from our cooperation. The network of networks provides us a very worthwhile source of expertise and contacts, trustworthy VET partner schools. The results, for instance, in the last year have been that we have had 88,800 outgoing student mobilities, and we had 2,700 outgoing staff mobilities. And altogether we had 41 collaborative projects together, which shows that there is a lot of cooperation and a dense system of cooperating between schools. The webinar of today is related to our joint KA3 project, Network of Networks, which is directly funded by the European Commission. It's aiming at building strong connections between VET schools in a grassroots approach. It brings us the opportunity to strengthen and to reinforce our cooperation and our relationship. 2020 has brought us all a lot of challenges and a lot of interesting times. In this perspective, Network of Networks supports us to meet, to build virtual mobility in order to keep the international perspective for our students alive and maintain our connections. This webinar enables us to look ahead behind the COVID times, to anticipate our European strategy and opportunities ahead, like the European School, like lifelong learning, and like the new Erasmus program for 2021 until 2027. So join us in this road and let's keep building connections. We hope you appreciate our webinar and look forward to meet again. Bye.
The biggest challenge in Gradia in general with the COVID situation was not the technology. Of course, the quick transformation from the running the ways we ran the school to e-learning was a big challenge. The courses were not designed for that kind of online implementation, and it required improvisation from the teachers and of course new ways of studying from the students. Microsoft Teams had worldwide capability challenges over the first COVID week, but after that technically things have been rather good and improving rapidly, where the challenge is how to adapt to the new features as they appear.
The COVID has brought us many different challenges. On the one hand, it set the conditions that not only all lessons have passed into online format, but that the programs, the methodology, the students' continuous evaluation, and the exams must change. Luckily, we have trained the teachers at the ICT tools, but we have to give the project an enormous push in a very short time, and of course, keeping the activity on. In our case, especially in the vocational educational training studies, the technical degrees have a big practical part to teaching the workshops, so we had to reorganize all the programs to do them from home.
I think possibly the largest problem that we have had to face is one around the great digital divide that exists. Glasgow Clyde College serves many of the communities of the city of Glasgow and also rural communities which surround the city. There is an enormous difference between the access to digital devices amongst our students, the internet connectivity that they have at home, and also their IT literacy, their ability to be able to use those devices. That's been an enormous challenge right from the start of lockdown, was supporting those people who didn't have their own devices and being able to access devices and get them to them, giving them internet connections, and also supporting them remotely to develop their skills so they could participate in remote lessons. I think another challenge was that, of course, we had staff as well. Some staff in their roles had limited IT skills. Certainly their familiarity with some of our e-learning platforms wasn't as we would like, and as they discovered, neither was it a level that they realised was particularly helpful given our move to a remote and blended learning model. So supporting staff to improve their IT capability became a big challenge. And I think the final challenge I'd have has been trying to run a college on a remote basis for so many months and maintaining a community of practice, both for the students so that they get a sense of a learning community, and for the staff as well, to make them feel like they're still part of the family of Glasgow Clyde College.
We've interviewed both our staff and students, and they all say the same. The biggest challenge has been in the soft issues, so to say. The working ergonomy, or how do you say that? How good of a working desk and stool you have at home? How peaceful is the environment at home? What kind of network capabilities, for example, you have at home? And the biggest challenge with this working from home is the lack of social contacts. No face-to-face interaction with colleagues or co-students, and that is a big minus.
On the other hand, with the school now physically opened again, the challenge is not minor. In order to prevent contagion by having so many students, we have had to reorganize the entrances, the grouping, classes rules, the dining room and the exits. It wasn't easy to define and implement all the protocols. In addition, since the classes are face-to-face, we have to attend to those in class and those who are locked down at home at the same time. Finally, in the daily management of the objectives of the school, the variable of uncertainty and continuous changes has indeed with great force. We were used to planning everything, but the COVID tsunami forces us to manage uncertainty in a new way. Of course, without a doubt, the greatest one is the opportunity to update and give a boost to everything related to computer tools, both in relation to video conferencing as well as teamwork tools and the digitalisation of all materials in general. In this sense, the schools have taken a giant leap forward. We already had most of the tools, but some of the teachers were more reluctant to use them in class, and now that there's no option, everyone has made a great effort to coach them up. But it has also given us the opportunity to manage change more quickly, to realize that reality is changing faster than we thought, and that we have the capacity to adapt but we have to take advantage of it.
I think there's been some really interesting opportunities that have arisen as a consequence of the pandemic. Now, notwithstanding the awful situation that we have all been in, one of the benefits has been the rapid acceleration of our e-learning program. We had some ambitions to greatly roll out and improve the use of e-learning approaches for all of our students. And of course, in March, when the UK went into lockdown, all of that was thrown into sharp focus, and we had to move over to using exclusively digital and remote methods. Quite luckily, we'd rolled out a few months before that a new strategy around e-learning, use of e-learning technologies, and we're preparing to transition from our existing virtual learning environment to a new, much enhanced virtual learning environment. So the lockdown as a consequence of the pandemic really did give us a kick to be able to really move forwards with that transition to e-learning. And I think that would also be another opportunity that we've had. Teachers who have done an astonishing job in making sure that their classes remained engaged have had to come up to speed with some new technologies, not just our VLE, but using video, conferencing facilities, and they've really used the opportunity to experiment and to share practice and to really push themselves out of their comfort zones to provide a learning environment that is as engaging and as stimulating as they possibly can for our learners. I don't underestimate how hard that's been for them, but I do think that when we eventually return back to campuses and back to the old model of teaching and learning, actually the new capabilities that staff will have will greatly enrich the learning experience for our students.
For digital services, this has been a sort of a proof of concept period. Things that were definitely not possible to do online were done online. We got rid of some old habits and got some belief in our own skills that we are actually able to change plans, change the ways that we've been doing things for years. We can be flexible, we can improvise and still do rather good. The atmosphere from our perspective has been very positive. Sort of we're in this together and we can do this. This has been rough and taken very much energy and required a lot of rethinking, a lot of redoing things. There's a lot of good in sense of digitalization. We've had the chance. We've been forced to test what we actually could do online. Not everything's possible, but many things you can do online, and there are different ways of doing those things.
Well, three things really spring to mind there. One was a huge investment by the college in staff development, continuous professional development activities delivered online. Immediately we went into lockdown in March. Our e-learning team and our college computing team went absolutely into overdrive, running sessions from the most elementary basic IT sessions for the staff to help them to come up to speed with some of the technology they were needing to use almost with immediate effect, through to some advanced practitioner training as well. The take-up amongst the staff was incredible, and throughout the whole of the period since March, we've run regular staff development online sessions, and participation has been way beyond our expectations. People really have a thirst for that learning. Secondly, we decided to be proactive in this space because what we knew was that in the face of this unprecedented challenge, there'd be a huge amount of innovation and creativity shown. So the college has an in-house research and development team. They were deployed to look at both novel teaching, learning and assessment activities and work undertaken by our non-teaching support staff. They have harvested great practice from across the college. They've curated that into an online repository of case studies, and we've also then used that as part of our CPD training to then share those case studies and that best practice with staff from right across the organisation. That has been an unrivaled opportunity, really, as there is so much experimentation going on, to then find things that work and then get that across to people right over the organisation. Finally, and my third point, we tried at the start of this academic year to give people the gift of time. We started the academic year late. We gave them 2-3 weeks of additional preparation time. That was certainly gratefully received by the teaching staff. It gave them time to be able to do more transition and get materials ready. I think towards the end of last academic year, it was really an emergency situation as we got thrust into lockdown, and to make the best of it, start of this academic year, we had to make sure we were prepared to provide a really engaging curriculum, and giving the staff that little bit of time certainly has helped them. And what we're trying to do now throughout this current academic year is to find smaller chunks of time that we can reduce down when teaching is happening, to allow staff to reflect and to prepare their materials ready for the next block of learning. I don't think anyone can underestimate just how challenging it is to prepare and deliver in this blended model, and we need to recognise that in the workloads that we give to our staff.
How have we helped our staff? We in Gradius Digital Services, we are 30 people. I have 5 people working in IT help desk, supporting by phone, email, service portal, Monday to Friday business hours, and that's sort of a more traditional IT support. I have another 5 people working as more of a pedagogical support for teachers, also supporting by phone, email, arranging weekly meetings, having online training events, having this Teams channel for discussion. They support teachers in using these tools. Sort of like questions, what can I do with this tool? How can I use this to achieve this goal? Or I want to do these kinds of things. What tools could I use? What would be best for this situation? We've written guides, we've done videos, blog posts, we've tried many different things. So it's been a new a possibility to learn new things for us as well. But in short, there's been plenty of good things from digitalization point of view. A boost, more energy, more willingness to try new things, and that's good.
In the early days of the confinement, the management team and pedagogical team of the school made a series of video tutorials about how to use the tools we had, so that everyone knew the different options they could use in their online classes. We opened several channels for detailed information. We put on some forums so that all the staff could share their experiences and the new tools they found. After then, in July and September, before starting the new school year, all the staff of the school received more specific training on tools and methodology. In addition, we structured the first week of the academic year so that all the new students knew all the communications tools and procedures that we are going to use in case of getting locked down.
And now I would like to introduce our next session, which will provide us a slightly different insight into today's topic. And may I introduce my colleague from the team arranging this webinar, Isaac May from Belfast Metropolitan College. Isaac, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all keeping well. My name's Isaac May, as Ray has introduced me, and I'm Community Programmes Manager at Belfast Metropolitan College. Last week, my colleagues in the network came to me and said, Isaac, we need a knowledgeable, charismatic and engaging individual to lead this panel discussion for us today. But we don't have the budget for them, so we're volunteering you to do it. So here we are. I'm only joking, of course. I'm delighted to welcome our guests today. We have three perspectives from across the network of networks and the colleges that represent those networks. Three with perspectives with a wealth of experience and insights to draw from. And we have Perho Kauhonen, who's principal of Gradia College in Finland, in Jyväskylä, Peri. Hopefully I've got that right. We're also delighted to welcome Joe Wilson, Head of Digital Skills at the City of Glasgow College in the fine city of Glasgow. And finally, a very valued colleague of mine, we're delighted to welcome Nicola Reilly, Quality and Compliance Manager from Belfast Metropolitan College. So can I just check, first of all, can you all hear me and your mics are working?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. I suppose I'd just like to start by asking our panelists to tell us just how long they've been working in the field of vocational education and training. I'll start with you, Nicola.
Okay, Isaac, thank you for that. My name is Nicola Reilly. I am the Quality and Compliance Manager for the Centre of Skills and Apprenticeships with Belfast Metropolitan College, and I have been in that position for the last 5 years. Unfortunately for me, I've been in the world of vocational education and training for 30 years, as I realised very much throughout my career has been very much tailored towards the skills agenda and work-based learning, certainly in Northern Ireland. But I've also had experiences of other Erasmus projects and sharing the experiences with colleagues in France and Portugal, really to make sure that we provide the best vocational education and training package that we possibly could, building on good experience.
Thank you, Nicola, and very much in keeping with the spirit of the network. Joe, yourself there, how long have you been in the field and have you experience of European cooperation?
You'll never guess because I'm so youthful, but I started working in vocational education, having stopped being a journalist in 1986. So over 30 years of doing all of this stuff. When I left journalism, we were starting to use computers to compile newspapers. That was the big typewriters were going. We were starting to use IT, and I've used learning technology ever since. And I think this is kind of our time now to finally get people to actually see that the online and digital is a good thing. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Perho.
Yes, my name is Peri, and I have been working for vocational education and training for 25 years, and the last 10 years as a principal in Gradia mainly.
Thank you. And Perho, I suppose the first question really I wanted to ask is, our theme today is reshaping education as a response to COVID. In your leadership role in Gradia College, you must have been faced with a tremendous challenge earlier this year in the face of this pandemic. Can you take us back to that early part of the year and what your thinking was and how you were approaching this, what you saw coming?
Well, we have to say that this year has been really a different year. and some year to remember afterwards. In March, when we jumped into this situation, we haven't been prepared for that, so that we jump overnight from contact learning and teaching to distance learning and working. We were not prepared to that. And but I have to say that we did it well, and I have to give all my respects to the teachers and guidance staff. They did a great job. And even though it was quite difficult to jump, because the skills and competencies were different. There was teachers who had experience in distance learning and teaching, and there was those who did have no or a limited experience in that. And the situation was the same for the students too, or the gap was even bigger. And we had to deal with this situation. And of course, when we jumped to this distance learning, we had to improvise, as Hanna already said, that we did do all the best to find solutions with those capabilities we had as a person, as a teacher, or as a student. Mm-hmm. And of course, when we are speaking about vocational education and training, one essential part of it is workplace training. And how can we deal with that in the situation when, for example, in the service sector, all the enterprises were closed? Mm-hmm. What can we do? Or how do we organize the practical vocational training by distance learning? And we have to deal with that. That was a quite interesting situation.
A huge challenge. And then was it completely unprecedented, or were you able to draw on your experience as a response to this situation?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Did you have a frame of reference that you could refer to in dealing with this situation, or was it completely unprecedented and unlike anything you'd faced before in your career?
Well, we have done some kind of development projects with this digitalization. So we didn't start it from the point zero. And we have, for example, those generic studies, we had already e-courses for that, e-learning courses. So that helped a lot in springtime. But and that was some kind of reference or some kind of experience that we had already, and there were teachers that had this experience, so we could rely on that experience. And because of that experience, all the other teachers who didn't have so much experience or none of it could have peer support from other teachers, which I find that is really good thing, and we were really done a good job with that.
Okay, thank you. Joe, turning to yourself there, leading this move online to online learning, blended learning, virtual learning environments, however you wish to describe it, this was a completely critical part of the response. And I see you've been posting some documents which will be of interest to the audience and reference points. But could you talk us through those early days in City of Glasgow College? How did you keep students engaged with learning?
So first of all, it was literally, and it would be the same for many of us, it was really an emergency response. I think we got wind that we might be moving to remote learning in about 2 weeks' time. So just when we started planning, we were told, no, you haven't got 2 weeks' time. You have to be out of the college the next day. So we literally got like 4 days notice. And at that point, it was really just that whole bit of making sure that the teaching staff and my own staff had laptops and things, so that actually we could go and start remote working and start delivering. And we started that, and then we immediately started stripping out, and I hope we get all the stuff back, but we immediately started stripping out libraries and workshops and various other things to make sure that learners, because closing the digital divide was the big thing in Glasgow, Basically, we've got a City of Glasgow College. If you have a look at it, it's a magnificent new build, really, really well equipped. We did laptop loans for people coming into the library to use in the library, but we didn't really have loan schemes for people to take computers home. Well, that changed very quickly. We're now busy lending things out to people, and we've just bought 1,000 new laptops for the start of this session to make sure that our blended approach is supported appropriately, and both with laptops and with MiFi or dongles as well, because there's a number of households in Glasgow that don't have access to Wi-Fi, so we have to give them, and of course the libraries are closed or have been closed, so no longer could you say to a student, here's a laptop, you can go to a coffee shop or you can go to a public library and you'll get Wi-Fi. That didn't apply either. So we're now handing out laptops and giving people internet access as we go along too. Not for everyone, but for the learners that need it. And that's how we did things. And we did it as an emergency response. And then I shared some of the things that we've done now to make it embedded. So we've only got students coming onto site now when they're doing practical vocational exercises that you can't do at home. You can't build a brick wall easily at home, and you can't demonstrate a range of hair cutting styles, and you can't. So when learners need to do that, we bring them and their teacher onto the site. But apart from that, we're still very much working remotely now.
Mm-hmm. I'm just picking up on that point, Nicola, from your experience, with the best will in the world, as Joe's saying there are certain things that you can't do remotely online. Do you think there's been a particularly negative impact on learners who need that practical face-to-face instruction? And I'm thinking particularly of your experience of rolling out work-based learning.
I think absolutely, Isaac, as you said there, it was very much an immediate response. And for a lot of learners who are involved in work-based learning, and particularly practical skills, that's the bit of their course that they enjoy. So we responded in an emergency situation, and there was a lot of uncertainty. Nobody thought, is this going to last a day? Is it going to last a week? Is it going to last a month? And here we are 7 months later. There was very much an immediate concern, particularly around the completion of those practical skills. So again, for learners, they don't understand necessarily the complexities of it, but they want to be a qualified joiner, a qualified hairdresser, a qualified chef. So there was a lot of background work, working with awarding organisations to look at adaptive assessment arrangements, but fundamentally, they wanted to know, am I going to be qualified? And also from an employer's point of view, is this apprentice or is this trainee going to have the skills that are going to benefit my business that I will then further invest? So there was very much that initial what's going to happen. As that came through, we were very much providing a lot of pastoral care and pastoral support. And it was very clear that in order to complete, there was the need for work-based assessment. So again, as lockdown started to ease, we then had to respond appropriately. So that response was with the employers. Could we go on site? Could our learners return on site? What were the arrangements that would be COVID compliant? What were the PPE arrangements? What were the arrangements that they perhaps wanted our staff as well as our learners to apply? So what we did was we designed a post-COVID return risk assessment, and it was an A4 sheet that said, what are the plans? And then the second stage was whenever then the return was allowed and facilitated, had the arrangements been facilitated, had the PPE been given out, was everyone clear on how they would communicate with the college if there was a COVID outbreak, and equally how the college would communicate with the employer. And I think that really is the key and the foundation of vocational education and training. Our customers are very much our learners, but they are also our employers who are the pivotal point of that work-based learning, and really in the key to making sure that the learners could continue to progress in a way that is fit for the industry that they are operating in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicola. Joe, just going back to you for a second there, it's been said that COVID has been accelerating changes which are already underway. Online learning and virtual learning environments, etc. They've been with us for a few years. Things are moving very fast. 12 months ago, I'd never heard of Microsoft Teams. 6 months ago, if someone had told me that they were Zooming, I would have assumed they'd just bought a new car or they had some personal issues to deal with. But what can we expect? You know, have we reached the limits of what we can do online through these environments, or what trends or developments should we be keeping an eye out for?
Okay, so I think first of all, we don't want to fall back the way. I think the bit while everybody's struggled with this, there's still a hardcore that say things like, "Oh, won't it be good when we're all back in the college and we have exams again and we do all the things the way." And I want to caution people on that, because actually, while learning's a very human thing, and I like seeing my students and seeing my colleagues and all of these kind of things, there's a lot of flexibility that's come out of this. That again, institutions used to say, well, we can't flex, you can't pick and choose which day you come into college, you can't pick and choose. Well, now you can with all of this technology. So I think we have to keep that student-centered approach in all of this. Although it might be hard, again, as I speak as an Oldian that uses technology, it might be hard for some of our colleagues to adapt, to say, well, this is the new future, but it is the new reality. And coming down the line, are probably friendlier virtual learning environments that embed Zoom and Teams and other tools, which makes the whole community aspect of learning much nicer for learners and for teaching staff. I think the bits that we haven't quite mastered yet is everybody talks about artificial intelligence and AI and all of these things. And when you dig into it at the moment, it's probably just a bit too expensive for vocational colleges to get into, but it's just about to arrive. You can see, again, if you've played about with Microsoft 365 Suite or indeed with Google tools, you'll see that some of the Google Forms and Microsoft Forms and things are actually only a couple of steps away from being artificial intelligence, where basically learners could actually self-learn and work through a whole lot of problems. So AI, and I think it's the same with what they call augmented reality and all of these things. They're all just about here, and it won't be augmented reality with all the funny headsets and things, because that's too expensive. It'll be augmented reality on a flat screen that allows people to walk. I mean, we've already got kind of 3D tours of our colleges and 3D tours of some of our labs and things, which we've been using to help people when they're coming in. If they've not been used to the health and safety in one of our workshops, we can now do that for them before they arrive. Give them a 3D tour, and that's cost effective. So I think that these are the kind of things that are just going to arrive, along with all the other things that have all arrived suddenly.
Thank you, Joe. Peri, just coming back to yourself, can some good come out of this pandemic? I'm thinking of the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, and this driver of innovation and change. What would your thoughts be on that? And I'm picking up on João Santos's presentation, and he referenced the Finnish research about innovation there in particular.
Yes, there's plenty of good things also in this black cloud of COVID that is around us. We have learned a lot when we are speaking about digital skills and competencies, but also pedagogical things and how to organize this kind of hybrid education and training that we are doing at the moment all together. I mean, this distance learning, contact learning, and also workplace learning. And I think that we have learned a lot also about how we lead, manage, and communicate in crisis situations. That has been a great good thing that we have learned, and that is something that we have to improve in the future. And I think that we have a kind of new kind of thinking about education and training, and also how we can learn. We can learn in different ways, And we have now experienced that there are plenty of things that we can do also by distance learning. The teachers have now this experience, and we can rely on that it can happen. And I think that it's really good, and it also has an impact on our school premises. How much do we need classrooms? How much do we have other kind of equipment here, or what we can use together with the working places, or what we can do also online? This all is really good thing. And also I think that this kind of seminars that we are now having online, when we can't even travel, but we can share our experiences through this kind of webinars, and I think that we will use them in the future too.
And just picking up on that point, with everything that's happened this year, do you still see a place for the international dimension of vocational education and training? Staff mobility, student mobility, will it come back? Will it look different?
Definitely, we will have international activities all together, and I'm really happy about this network of networks partnership. And well, there will be changes, of course, but it will happen. We will still have student exchanges, staff exchanges, and we will have also new kind of ways how to cooperate by distance working. And I think that we have new ideas for how to share projects online. And I think that we have to find new ways, and in some months or someday we will also travel. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, so we've got some good news on the horizon by the looks of things. Nicola, your thoughts just on the international dimension of vocational education and training, and what we can learn from each other, what we can share. Value in this approach?
Absolutely, because I think fundamentally it always remains the same. Vocational education is about the skills needed in local economies, and more economies are becoming more regional, more national, more international, and even more global. And I think certainly the young people and adults that are coming through and accessing our programs, they see the world through the World Wide Webs, you know, so the fact that, you know, they're zooming on phones and we're zooming on phones, it is really important that the communication tools that we use are very much engaging, reflective, and can build on the best practice that has happened. You know, I think it is an effective use of time, resources, money, and all of that. You know, it's really important that we have more in common than what we have in our differences. And I think that is really where we need to really focus on building a really solid foundation of good practice that can be shared for the benefit of the learners and the employers that access our services.
Thank you. Good point. Well put. Joe, same question to you.
Well, I think that the first thing it'll be in with this, you know, whatever whether we get vaccinated or not, and all of these things, we'll all be working in the kind of European restrictions about us moving about and things. But it will certainly come back. We all know, we probably all have experienced that bit of you know, meeting new people and experiencing new cultures and face to face is the best way to build partnerships and understanding and all of these kind of things. I think the hardest part for us in Scotland and probably for our colleagues in Northern Ireland is the whole Brexit business, which we haven't chatted about. Which
what is that again? Remind me.
Yeah. I don't want. I might be ill if I talk too much. But we also do know that in terms of VET, all of the European partners are reaching out to us and saying, you know, look, it's not the end of the world, but we've still got a bit of negotiation to do there, because we know they've got great things to share with us, and we know that we still want to share experiences with them. So we've still got a bit of navigation to do around this.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm conscious of the time, guys, so I'm going to maybe draw this discussion to a close. I think we could talk long on a lot of the subjects and themes that we've talked about today, but unfortunately time is against us. I think, you know, a good start is the best of guides, as they say. So I think this collective approach and sharing resources is the way to go via the network. I think we have the platform to do it. We have the tools to allow us to do it. So let's continue that, and confidence in the team there to make sure that all this material is circulated widely to all the participants and indeed beyond that. So listen, thank you all very much for an illuminating and interesting discussion. I'll give you a round of applause, but we don't want to set everybody's mics off. But listen, thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to pass back now to my colleague Tamara Rodriguez, who has the unenviable task of trying to summarize.
Yeah, hello everybody. Well, thank you first of all to Joe, Pirio, and Nicola for the panel discussion. It was indeed very interesting, and there were a lot of valuable inputs in the panel discussion about the challenges, but also the opportunities brought by the COVID in terms of work-based learning, communication with teachers and with employers, assessment and follow-up of students and so on. But I was asked to give a summary of the discussion very shortly, and I've dared to do that. And let's see if I managed to sum up your ideas in very short lines. What I came up with is with the idea that the COVID forced us all to take a kind of leap of faith. Nobody was prepared for it, and it was like a surprise exam for teachers and for students. It was the time to gather all the resources, technology, digital tools, digital competencies, innovative methodologies that were maybe already there, but probably underused because we hadn't felt the breath on the back of our necks so clearly before. And this has somehow sped up the transformation of vet colleges and hopefully also a readiness to face the challenges of a digital world. So this is my way to sum up all the ideas that you have shared in the panel, and I hope I did it well. And well, before giving the floor to Rhea again, I would like to remind you about the webinar Padlet that we have created. I saw that there were some comments already there, but as Rhea said before, it will be open until Friday. So maybe after the panel discussion, you will have some ideas in your mind as well that you would like to share with us, and we would be very delighted to have access to them and to include them in the webinar. So thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Can I still have the slide number 4, please, up before we let people go? And if we can share the link to the poll. Before you leave, we would like you to contribute to the theme, selecting the theme for the next webinar. So, so please go to the chat. There should be a link there to the poll about the next webinar theme. And so, as you see, we're still learning how to organize these webinars, although we have had a huge bunch of experts and professionals doing this, but we're not yet quite experts in webinar arranging. We can, you know, blame it on the commission guy maybe, but I'm happy that so many of you were able to stay until the very end. So this concludes now the first, but most definitely not the last webinar of the Network of Networks. And it's also a start of an era, hopefully, where the network will be hopefully even more easily approachable and transparent than before. You can contribute to the next webinar or the next webinars and the newsletters by voting in the poll, and also writing and commenting in the Padlet, as said. And I would like to thank all the participants, all guest speakers, my fellow teammates who have worked hard to make this first webinar happen. And like I said, none of us are professionals in the webinar arranging business yet, but I believe we will be after the end of the project. So for now, it is goodbye. Thank you. Have a nice evening, and please enjoy 2 more days of annual meeting events. Bye-bye.